the human tendency to continually pursue more as a cure for the itch, while simultaneously maintaining that itch by that very pursuit, seems illogical. And that's precisely the case according to German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer concluded that we want what we want because, like anything else in the universe, we are representations of the will to live, or simply the will. Schopenhauer argued that the will is an illogical, directionless, continual striving that causes us to live a life of suffering and cannot be ended by anything that the world has to offer. Because of this, we pathologically want more than we need, driven by an incessant sense of lack. The mind perceives lack because it believes that the present moment is not enough. Something is missing, but it doesn't know what. And thus, we keep escaping what is into situations that we perceive as more pleasurable. But when we get there, we eventually find ourselves in the same dissatisfied state that we tried to escape. Schopenhauer stated, and I quote, "Thus, also every keen pleasure is an error and an illusion, for no attained wish can give lasting satisfaction." End quote. According to Schopenhauer, the will is why we strive, the will is why we seek, but following it never satisfies, because the will itself is the very thing that keeps us from getting what we want. In other words, stop trying to get it, and you'll have it. Accept imperfection, and you feel perfect. Accept loneliness, and you feel content alone. Try to be perfect, and you're imperfect. Try not to be lonely, and you're miserable by yourself. When you try to stay on the surface of the water, you sink. But when you try to sink, you float, Alan Watts stated. In the same way, when you try to fall asleep, your effort will keep you awake. Only when you stop trying, you'll doze off. And when you hold your breath, you'll lose it. But when you let it go, it continues on its own. When we stop trying to be happy, we'll be happy, because there's nothing we need beyond what is. When we stop trying to be rich, we'll live in abundance, because we're content with what we have, and anything on top of that is a bonus. Thus, the only way to have what we want is not to want it, and that's what the backwards law teaches us. There's a Zen story that illustrates this paradoxical idea by explaining how we can clear cloudy water. Imagine there's a pond with cloudy water and we want to see its floor. We can stir the water or try to remove the cloudiness with our hands, but this won't work. The only way to see its floor is by doing nothing until the cloudiness subsides and the water is clear. The cloudiness represents our desires, our thoughts, our dissatisfaction. The stirring in the water and attempts to remove the cloudiness represent our grasping for happiness. Seeing the floor represents contentment, which only happens when we leave the water alone and let the cloudiness subside by itself. Being aware of the workings of the backwards law doesn't mean that we should never set goals, never have ambitions, or never pursue change. There's probably an endless amount of reasons why we should make a change and shouldn't accept the status quo. However, the backwards law does teach us not to be fooled by the idea that the pursuit of happiness leads to happiness. It's quite the opposite. And with that knowledge, we're able to enter that blissful state of not wanting a bit more often. Because, as Alan Watts stated, the mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Thank you for watching.